Good evening, Amir.
Good evening, Hannah.
It must have been a long day, and I think that it's at the end of the week. You're supposed to be restful, and I'm kind of like dragged into this, but I hope
No,
that
it's a
you're fine.
pleasure. Yeah, it's a end of the day and end of the week, but uh, my brain is still is working. Hopefully, I can answer your questions to my best of my ability at this time.
Oh, thank you so much, but I'm sure that you will be able to. So I thought that, when you s- when I read about your book, I felt
Right.
that it was very interesting, and I think
Thank you.
um and also I think that, the Japanese will be people, who read English literature will be able to
Okay.
understand
Yeah,
about.
that would be good. Yeah, that would be great to have readership in Japan. That
Yeah, of
that's it's
course.
a country that always I was always very fascinated, and I never been to Japan. Definitely one of the countries that I want to travel to, and a lot of culture, a lot of things there to see, and definitely it would be honor for me to have readers in Japan.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I hope that, you enjoy, visiting Japan one day.
I'm
But
sure I will.
so I would like just, well, before, well, you know, I think, I thought that the title was very surreal, So sometimes, I hear words like trauma, like, this is just an example to you, but it's sometimes a word that is maybe hard to relate for the Japanese people, you know.
Right.
It's not because they don't try to understand, but but it's like, for example, um well, it was actually a memorial day of the Great East Earthquake, which was devastating for Japan.
Oh, right. Yes, yes. Fukushima,
And
correct.
and a lot of people well, you know, are interested in, inheriting, what happened. But it's not just as a form of, writing nonfiction stories. So,
Right.
it could be about, kamishibai, which is like a play, in
Right.
paper. So, I think that, the reason why, well, this, book, Alice, for example, um, wakes up in a world where people wear animal masks. It
Right.
sounded very surreal, but
Right.
I hope that you know, I think that it means it represents, the what is happening, and maybe you
Right.
could discuss maybe from that.
Sure. Sure. I chose a surreal fable-like
Mm,
structure because uh, systems like the one in the book are often difficult to explain, through straightforward realism.
mm,
If you simply describe them as they are, many
mm,
people outside that environment
mm,
assume you are exaggerating.
mm,
So instead of writing a conventional political thriller, I created a symbolic world where power literally shapes identity. In Mullahland, people appear with animal forms that reflect their place in the system. like foxes as mullahs, pigs as police, etc. So it's strange at first,
Mm-hmm.
but the more Alice explores the world, the more the logic of the system begins to reveal itself. Political fables have a long tradition. Books
Mm-hmm.
like Animal Farm by George Orwell, actually a
Oh,
famous
yes,
book,
yes.
used allegory to explain how ideological system actually function beneath the surface. So I wanted to do something similar here, but through the eyes of someone discovering the world step by step. Basically, I wanted to allow the readers to go through this journey with Alice, like and that's really the experience of the book. Like the reader learns the rules of Mullahland at the same time Alice does, slowly realizing that what first looks absurd is actually a very precise reflection of how power works.
Mm. Well, as you know, you mentioned actually a very important point of people may not realize, if it's true. I think um I think that a lot of people are starting to actually be interested in using social media or YouTube because of actually the surreal situation that's going on in, uh, uh, among the Japanese media, which is not describing this terrible human rights violation, you know,
Yeah,
that ha has been going on in Iran.
right.
And and this is not about actually about that has just started like all of a sudden, in January.
No, that's
It
going
has.
on for many years, for many
Yes.
years. And exactly, I think that because the news, they
Mm,
never do the justice. People needs to see what's behind the news or beyond the news in the real world. And that's why I thought that using this allegory and fable-like surreal,
mm,
it helps people to engage better because
yes.
uh, abstract politics is sometimes many people don't like abstract
Mm,
politics. Sometimes it becomes too much or
mm,
sometimes too boring,
mm,
depends on, but when you make it like a story and a surreal and something
mm.
more engaging, you can then get more people to try to understand what's going on in Iran.
I think that is very important because then, people will start to be interested in the facts more. And at
Right.
the same time, Persian literature, that's a
Right.
rich culture.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
right? I mean, Persian
Yes. It's a
literature too, is
yeah, yeah.
very much uh, a rich culture. And actually, I have a friend, who is in Israel, um,
Right.
who specializes in Persian studies. He has
All
PhD
right.
from it. So he's completely fluent in Persian,
All right. Nice.
Yeah. But I think
Yeah.
that, he might, be able to analyze, for example, but from your perspective, explaining the daily situation of the people, sometimes, you know, I don't think that people have to be a specialist in explaining, what they are
Right.
going through, right?
Yeah, everyone who grow up under this regime has something to say, has some terrible experience can share to share,
Mm,
and that's why it's important to just put them in a story, and I try to use some of those my personal experience, some of those the
mm,
ones that I heard from friends. So I try to just put that in this story, so in this novel, so people can really read and make it, as I said, engaging like a story and allow them to travel with Alice in that journey to understand how the system works.
Yes. Yes, Alice in Wonderland, that's one of the classics that I have read, when I was a child,
Right,
both in English and Japanese, the translated version. But, it's a very mysterious world, you know.
correct.
Which
Yes,
is the same as I think that what Iranian people are placed in, really. So I thought it was very interesting that you picked up, Alice, you know.
right. Yeah, yeah,
See
it
that.
was, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean that the title was important for me when it came to
Mm,
my mind the first time. The idea it started actually with the title. In fact, the title came to my mind first, Alice in
mm.
Mullahland, and then the story came after that. Then I built the story around that title.
Well, probably, that has something to do with something that you have deep in your mind. I mean, it's not just the title, but you had something in yourself and you thought,
Right.
you have thoughts about it for a long time. Then
Yeah.
probably you decided to write about the story.
True, exactly. I always like to tell stories, and but that title basically just was the spark. What something I
Mm.
needed to push me because it's difficult to take the pen and start writing. I needed
Yeah,
something,
exactly.
and that title was so strong
Mhm.
that when it came to my mind, I told myself I have to write it now, and that's my title, and I'm going to write the story based on that title. And obviously I had the stories all in my unconscious for many years
Mm,
of living there and hearing from other friends their experience. So, but the title just was that driver force for me.
I see. Yes, I really, and then how long, may I ask like how long it took, to write the story?
Um, from the time that it start to the end, and because it went through uh, a few round of beta readers to read it and gave comment. I wanted because I'm not expert. This is my first novel, so I could say I'm a good storyteller overall, but it's different from writing a book, a professional book. So I needed to give it to beta readers a step by step. They read, they give me comments and guide me how to make it better. So including all those steps, it took like around 7, 8 months.
I see. But you were very focused on writing this, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it wasn't easy because I have a full-time job. As I said, I'm not a professional writer. I started this as a hobby, and I didn't know how difficult it is, but it took a lot of time and effort. It's not easy. Yeah,
Mm. However, expressing, I think, is one way to, describe the situation. I really believe that way. And it doesn't have to be the direct description of the scene. You know,
right.
I really think it's very important to use some exemplification and also, the situation that is relatable to people's mind,
Exactly.
I guess, really.
Right. Yes, exactly.
What's disappointing is that, these days children don't get to read Alice in Wonderland so much in Japan, and I just hope that they
Oh, really? Yeah, it used to be very popular when
classic,
we were kids.
really. Yeah,
I don't know if it's still the case or not, but definitely it was very popular. Yeah,
yeah. I really believe that, they should both read, Alice in Wonderland and also, your book, right? I really
well, I would say that my book, I suggest someone is 18
more
plus
than
because
yeah,
there are some
yeah.
violence and things like that,
Mm,
even though the title is similar to Alice in Wonderland, because of there are some reality of violence and things like
mm,
that we know what happens in the Mullah land. It's in
mm.
Iran. So yeah, but definitely any ones that who are in an age that they can process that level of violence. It's
Mm.
not explicit, it's not like graphic, but still there are a lot of mention of violence. I didn't go, it's not in a way that uh, disturbing someone,
Mhm.
but still, when you explain a dictatorship, theocratic system like Iran, of course, there are some scenes that are really tough.
Yeah, actually, I do understand what you mean. I did write a nonfiction story of a person who went through, this is March 10th, was a memorial of a concentration bombing, committed by the United States, but um, it was a terrible memory for some people. And I
For
do
sure.
understand that part. And, it's not saying that I understand in a position, for them, but I really think that for people to understand, it's sometimes very important to make it a story, really, to
Agreed.
convey the
Yes, for
message,
sure.
right? Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. So, I really, felt that, actually, your title was very interesting.
Thank you. I got that a lot. Many people who uh, read that book, they're telling me the title, they really like the title.
Yes, I really, especially those, I think, especially those who went through trauma, I really think that, this is far better, to express, or
Yes,
describe. I really feel that way. But so the Islamic regime, or has a very, I felt in this manner, a very, very powerful regional influence. You know, that's something
correct.
that I really felt. Um,
Yes,
so, um, and I really felt that, I don't want to get into politics today because it's about your novel. You know, yeah, like, yeah, politics, yeah, just, I just stay away from politics today. But I really feel that the Islamic regime has a very, very regional influence, much, powerful regional influence for the last, since, well, I have to say 1979. And
right,
actually, I have to get over of some of like this terrible thing that they have done, but um what would you uh well, I think that this, a lot of people, a lot of Japanese, for example, when
right,
I ask, for example, even about Israel, they say, well, it's a country which is very far away. I know that it's about a war, now it's directly affecting, people's lives, with oil prices. But
right,
not just oil prices, but this war is directly affecting people's lives. Um,
correct.
um, but you know, what do you think is a very, how do you, well, I have to ask you, like, I'm very sorry that you sometimes not very good at asking questions, but I really, so I would like you to describe, how you would describe people would be able to understand um this, regional, it's sometimes, taken as, the Iranian, politics. But at the same time, you took universal topic, right? Universal theme, and
Right.
try to describe the problem, the the situations. Sometimes, um I will not get into like judgmental, well, yeah, I won't. Yeah, I won't. I don't want to get into judgment because I want people to read your book, and I hope that they decide, what they think. So,
For sure. Yeah. Of course,
wow,
yeah.
right?
I mean that everyone can have their own
Most important
interpretation
part.
of the book. Yeah, yeah, that's important.
But so regarding this, the reason why, well, what do you think of this balance between, picking up the universal, theme and describe, a certain type of, I guess, uh, well, politics, not just politics, culture, everything, exemplifying, mirroring, how would you describe, that part, if
So you mean that do you just to make sure that I understand your question,
Mhm,
do you mean if this book I
mhm.
try to address a universal system or specifically talking about Iran? Is that your question?
Yes, but it's not just about, the politics, but when you pick up Alice, it sounds like very much universal, but I guess that some critics might question, whether the theme was appropriate for the topic. I probably should have, used with the term topic because, your topic is not just about politics. That's what I was thinking. So,
Well, it's for sure. It's about the whole this system. Of course, to some extent, it's about the politic. And Alice is a foreigner
mhm,
actually that travels to Mullahland,
mhm,
and just I wanted the reason I chose Alice
mhm,
is as a foreigner is because I wanted to put foreigners read there, the people who are not familiar with Iran. I
mhm,
want Alice to be their guide basically because Alice thinks the same as them basically from a free land. Um, so that's why I chose a topic and I put Alice in that Mola land. And basically, even though the story is inspired by the experience of Iran under
mhm,
clerical rules,
mhm,
uh, but I didn't want to write a novel that only speaks to one country or
mhm,
one political or societal moment. What actually interested me more was how systems of power reshape human identity. And it doesn't matter if it's in Iran or anywhere, it's a universal. So in Mullah land, people don't simply choose masks to wear.
mhm,
When the mullahs came to power, society almost fell under a kind of curse. So that's a surreal, right? It's just like a
mhm,
curse that people gradually become like a rabbit. But that not because they wanted to. It was because of fear, surveillance, and punishment that slowly push people toward obedience and silence. So that's a system that can work in any dictatorship. It's
mhm,
not about Iran. It's a universal theme. When there is fear, when there's punishment, people will become like a rabbit. I use a rabbit obviously as a symbol.
mhm,
But the transformation to rabbit it's not absolute. There are moments when a rabbit suddenly behaves like a lion. And that's usually when someone decides that fear is no longer acceptable. And again, that can happen everywhere. Look at the many revolutions, many protests in many different countries. That can happen everywhere. That's where rabbits just convert to lions, right? They become suddenly they decided, no, I'm not going to be rabbit anymore. And those moments are rare and dangerous,
Hmm.
but they reveal something about human nature that authoritarian systems try very hard to suppress because they always want to make sure that you stay rabbit. They don't want lions, right?
Hmm.
So while the story grows out of a specific historical experience, the deeper question becomes universal. What happens to individual when a system demands ideological conformity? And as Alice explore this strange world, she slowly begins to realize that the rabbits around her are not exactly what they appear to. She starts learning that when
Hmm.
she start interacting with them.
Hmm.
But anyways, in many ways, the real question of the novel becomes very simple. What happens when a rabbit decides it no longer wants to be a rabbit? That's all I'm trying to explain to this in this novel. That in
Hmm.
that moment, just 2 months ago, right? They didn't want to be rabbits anymore. They decided to be lion, and we saw what happened there. It was brutal.
Sorry, could you wait a moment? I don't know why, but
Sure.
there's uh intrusion in the internet. Like, do you
I
realize, this strange sound,
I heard something. Yeah,
right? Just could you,
I heard.
yeah, see it stopped. And yeah, maybe just a minute. I need to check the internet because I could, yeah, okay, just, okay. Now it's stopped. Uh, okay. This happens sometimes and it's kind of annoying. Yes. Okay. So, okay. Okay. I will continue recording now. Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. So what I said actually at the end, I wanted to just conclude that in many ways the real question of the novel becomes very simple, and that's what happens when a rabbit decides it no longer wants to be a rabbit, and that's really the situation that we had in Iran several times.
Mm.
Um, and like 2 months ago, and also a few years ago during the Mahsa Amini protests.
Yes. Um, Actually, rabbits are, as you mentioned, are quite often used in Japanese fables. And
All right.
well, I
Okay.
have to say, yeah, like in toys, in many cases, rabbits are very common topics. I guess,
Right.
eating rabbits is a very
And I
common.
think that Japanese actually like fable a lot. Am I right? They really like the animal stories. So maybe my novel resonates with Japanese very well. I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. So yeah, they probably will be able to relate the story more, and because the scenes, I have to tell you, I'm sorry that, I have to go back and forth about this, but the scenes of the protests are sometimes too brutal for the Japanese, and I think that they will develop psychological really trauma by looking even
Right.
looking at it. So, there needs some kind of like one thing in between so that they will be able to understand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they will just stop watching and I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do for the people like them, that they don't want, or they
Mm.
cannot take the news, and they're too much for them. So this story can make it easier for them to read, smoother, and to understand.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was actually going to ask you about, this, Alice, but I think that, yeah, you explained a lot about this as well. But I, th in case, and I'll just describe some parts about Japan because I'm actually also trying to explain what anti-Semitism is as well.
Sure,
This is about
sure,
Israel, but and yeah, I would like to focus on on Israel today, but I know Iran today, but for I think for the Japanese, it's important to understand that Iran and the Islamic regime are different, really.
oh, definitely, yes.
Yeah. So, so, uh, I would like to actually about go to a story of Alice's father, being a diplomat,
Sure,
right?
for sure, right.
Um, um, Actually, this happens to be an interesting, except, set properly. I have to say, setup, in a way. But
Right.
what do you think of his father, being a diplomat? Do you think that it plays, a role in a story? In what sense?
Yeah, for sure. John River as a character, when I brought him to the story in
Mm,
some at some stage, and he became an important character there, and that scene allowed me to explore actually a broader
mm,
issue that often comes up in conversations among Iranians. There are many conspiracy theories about even the 1979 revolution
mm,
and about Western governments
mm.
supposedly wanting the clerical regime, the mullahs, to remain in power. I
Yes.
personally try to approach these questions more cautiously because I think it is important not to take away the agency of the Iranian people. Because if we think that everything is done by foreign powers, then what's
Mm,
the role of Iranian people? What's the role of people? We completely take the agency from them. So the revolution was an extremely complex historical moment shaped by many actors, internal forces within Iran, as well as external influences. Within Iran, there were several major players. The Shah himself,
mm,
Islamist groups,
mm,
intellectual movements from both the left and the right,
mm,
and of course, the Iranian population that was mobilizing the streets. So outside powers also played roles at different moments, like some regional actors, such as Libya, Gaddafi,
mhm,
Algeria, or revolutionary networks in Lebanon were
mhm,
actually very engaged with the revolutionary movement in 1979. They support the Ayatollah Khomeini a lot, those countries. And in fact, if there is any foreign power that has some hands in that revolution, it's those countries, not the Western. Western governments, in my view, just became more involved mainly in the final weeks when it became clear that the monarchy was collapsing and they had to decide how to deal with the emerging political reality of after that revolution.
mm,
So, and after the revolution also many Iranians developed the belief that Western countries, especially the United Kingdom, somehow benefit from keeping the clerical regime and the mullahs in power. UK in particular
mm,
has long been seen in Iranian political culture as the hidden hand behind everything. Like anything happened in Iran, they say, okay, UK has some hand on it because they think that UK has this mysterious power. And UK used to be actually a Great Britain 100 years ago, at the time of colonial power. They had that power. But I don't know if they still have that power these days. I don't think so. But because when you look at this more closely, it becomes difficult to identify what benefit
mm,
would actually be for them. Like Iranian oil today goes largely to China.
mm,
Barely any economic exchange between Iran and countries like the UK. It's
mm,
very limited, mainly because of sanctions. So there is no real economic benefit for them. And many of Iran's most talented people have emigrated to Western countries such as the United States, Canada, or Australia. So UK doesn't even get benefit from Iran's talent pool.
mm,
Therefore, I I rather, I mean, I think rather than a hidden strategic design, I think what often explains Western policy is something more ordinary, democratic politics. Western leaders ultimately respond to the voters. They have
mm,
vote. They need to just what they want. They want votes, and they respond to electoral pressure. Foreign policy toward Iran competes with many other domestic concerns, and Iran is rarely a central issue in Western elections. To be
mm,
honest, they don't care about Iran that much. Many Iranians think that everything that Western countries does, it's something to do with Iran, but in reality, they have they care about their domestic issues. Iran is very low in their priority. So this actually creates a gap between how many Iranians interpret Western behavior and how Western political systems actually operates. That gap and the tension it produces was what actually interested me in
mm,
writing when I was writing John Rivers. Western countries present themselves as
mm,
defenders of democracy and human rights. They
mm,
always, put themselves in that position. But still, their diplomats often have to negotiate with regimes whose moral and political logic is very different, right? And they have to do that. They have to, because of diplomacy, they need to just talk to those regimes sometimes. That, and the character of the John River allowed me to explore that uncomfortable space between ideals and political reality, where diplomacy sometimes means bargaining with systems that do not share the same values. And John Rivers was exactly in that position. He, I wanted him to put in a very, very real. I tried to imagine him as in a real situation. He's a nice guy. He doesn't want to give. He is not supporting mullahs, but he has to negotiate with them because he wants to save his daughter and many other hostage. We know that the regime, the mullahs, one of their businesses just take hostage from dual nationalities. There were a lot of Iranian Canadian, Iranian British, Iranian American, or even just American non-Iranian or Canadian. They just take as hostage. They
mm,
took them as hostage, and then they try to take something from Western country to let them go. And I can understand why Western country negotiate with them in those cases because they care about their own citizen, and it's the role of each government, each state to take care of their own citizens. So if they want to take them out of the Iran, they have to negotiate because there are a lot of pressure from the families of those hostages inside those countries. They demand rightfully that where is my husband? Where is my wife? Where is my kids? Where are my kids? Take them out of that country because they just take them for no reason. They just take them as hostage. Really, they just there's nothing. It's just all nonsense. But that's what the Islamic Republic does.
You know, this is something I still wonder. Japan is actually in East Asia. It's not
Right.
exactly the Western culture, the Western
Right.
nation. It's not the individualism. And I think that, in that sense, Iran is different, in culture, but
Right.
still wants a civilized nation, secular.
Right.
I think that people wish that way, but
Yes.
somehow the business interests are always put forward, and this
Yes.
political correctness, or I have to say, not correctness exactly, but how people are able to live, or those kinds of issues are just left behind all the
That's
time.
true. Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
I
I agree.
really
Yeah.
do not, as a person, I'm not a politician, or I'm not a person with business interests in Iran. I have to
Right.
say that, I do not want to put forward my business interests or my personal interest to talk about Iran and look
Yes.
at people who are bleeding to death, really.
Yeah. No, I totally see your point. But and what I'm trying to say,
Mm,
or at least from using that character, is just
mm,
to show it that tension exactly. It's a
yeah,
difficult situation to be. It's not comfortable. John
yeah.
Rivers, as I said, is a nice guy. He care for
Yeah, I do
human
understand, but this
right.
is something of my personal, my standpoint, and I think that, when it comes to diplomat,
Yeah.
it's always about negotiating with people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I really hoped, this is kind of wishful thinking, that the US had dealt with this issue much earlier and, hoped, well, for example, GHQ left the imperial system because it was necessary for Japan. I
Right.
really hoped that this is something I'm not, an expert on. However, I would, say from an outsider point of view that probably it was wrong to collapse the Shah regime. It may have been important to probably change the legal systems, or other systems, so that this system could be civilized. However, um, it wasn't done that way, and
No, that collapse was definitely wrong. And in the book also I mentioned
mm,
from Mona, a friend of Alice, actually, she says that many Iranians believe that was a mistake.
mm,
But it was inevitable, unfortunately, because Shah was sick. He had cancer at the time,
mm,
um, and and Shah was a nice person. He liked Iran. He did some definitely wrong things, of course, but overall, whatever he did, he believed that he's doing the best for Iran. That's the big difference between Shah and this regime. This regime don't care about Iran. The mullahs just care about their ideology, their really, sorry, stupid ideology that they have. And
mm,
they do not care about Iran at all. But Shah care about Iran, and he tried to do what was best for Iran. But of course, he made some mistakes in that path. But what is important is that he was a soft character. Even though he had a system, he was the main person. Yeah, I know that some Iranian might not like it, but he was a dictator. But he was a dictator who cared about Iran. He wanted the best for Iran, and he was a nice person, character wise. And he was a soft person, and the dictatorship didn't suit him because a dictator needs to be very tough, and Shah wasn't. And
mm.
that's he didn't want to rule.
Like he's
um,
outside of the country.
he left. He didn't want to kill people. He just left. But look at these mullahs. They're not living. They're happy to kill the last Iranian, but still stay in power. That's a big difference. And because Shah didn't want to kill, and he left, no one could do anything about it. Because let's say what the Western power could do. Could they send their troops to suppress the protest in Iran? It's not possible. Shah should have done something himself. I'm not suggesting that he should have killed people in the streets, but he should. There were ways to survive. But there's one good outcome is that Iranian people and Iran should have experience of the regime of the mullahs regime once forever. Now everyone knows, all Iranians know what mullahs regime means, and never in future Iranian allow mullahs come back to power. That's it. That's finished. If we didn't experience that, there was always the risk that sometime these mullahs can come to power. We needed this experience, and hopefully the world learn from it. Unfortunately, they don't. I know that many people in the Western countries, they don't understand. They naively
Mm,
support supposedly support Muslims, but they actually support Islamists. And there's a big difference between Muslims and Islamists, political Islam. And political Islam is exactly what happens in Iran, and it's scary. And the
mm,
Western countries should learn that lessons.
mm.
I hope they learn. Anyways, yeah, that was just wanted to clarify that that collapse of Shah was not a good thing. Definitely, I don't believe it was good. It's if he stayed in power, Iran might be in a very different path. And but unfortunately, my generation, I grew up in that new regime, in the mullahs regime, and we called ourselves the lost generation. Our life was totally wasted.
Yeah, actually, this is actually one of the universal topic, It may sound like the emperor is a dictator. However, at the same time, we can, under the Japanese political system, he's outside of the political system right now. However,
Right.
there is a symbolic role that he plays.
That's exactly what we need for, and I think that's the right thing. And that was actually in the Iranian before revolution, the constitution actually gave a symbolic role to the
Mm.
king. But the culture, Iran culture and Japan culture is different. In Japan, actually, the emperor plays that symbolic role. He doesn't get involved with actually governing. But in Iran, unfortunately,
No,
the
he doesn't
king
have the
gets
governing
involved.
power either. So, but I do understand, and I don't, want to discuss the cultural similarity or difference here. However, of course, that the Iranian culture has its own uniqueness, and it's
Right,
very different from the Japanese system. The people's characters are different, so I don't
right.
exactly, I don't want to exemplify the system into Japan. However, losing a political leader, who could transition into actually more symbolic role, that was very unfortunate, actually.
Yeah.
I really feel that way.
Yes, no, I agree. There are many countries that they have the monarchy, and the king or the queen is just has symbolic role, and they're perfect. They work perfect. And unfortunately, it didn't happen in Iran. I hope now we have another opportunity for that system, and I hope this time it works for us. And I hope that we can first pass this very difficult time and just put the mullahs behind us and then build a new system, a new good system for our country.
Yes, I think that this is for the sake of the Iranian people, really.
Sure. And I would say not only Iranian people, this regime, these mullahs are bad for the whole Middle East and the whole world, really. And if they fall,
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure, I have no doubt that the world is going to be a more peaceful and safer place.
So, I have uh yes, I have a question about the character in your book.
Sure.
Now,
Sure.
Ellie serves as a civilian guide, who protects Alice, while the cleric Dick represents the terrifying gap between the public piety and private conduct. In your view, does Ellie represent the silent majority, in the regime?
Okay. Ellie actually represents a generation
Mm.
that grew up in the culture of obedience.
Oh.
In many traditional families, the
Mm-hmm.
father had the ultimate authority in the older past era, in like 40, 50 years ago. And
Mm-hmm.
children learned very early that the safest things to do to say yes and avoid confrontation, to
No.
say yes to father. That habit of obedience often carried from the home to the society. So, but the younger generation in the book is different. They begin to challenge authority, both in the family and in the political system.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced that environment myself growing up in Iran, and I belong to Ellie's generation, and I can speak from, and that's what I'm trying to actually put there because we learned that we should just respect the father, we should say yes, very obedience. That was the time that we grow. So I was arrested for the first time when I was only 15 years old in Iran at that regime. At that time, even wearing jeans or short sleeves could attract attention from moral police. And moral police, many people heard about moral police, and I talk about moral police in this book a lot. And that's the police to stop girls for hijab, like they killed Mahsa Amini. So they arrested me when I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
One day I was just walking alone in the street when they stopped me and just claimed that neighbors had reported a suspicious young boy walking around. It was obviously nonsense. They just wanted, the real purpose was to show me from a very young age who is in control. They wanted to show that they are in control and they can arrest me whenever they want for any reason they want. That's what they were trying to show. And they took me to the police station and forced my parents to sign a paper to promising that I would behave and be a good boy. I didn't do even anything. Just walking like a 15 years old. And even they bring the parents intentionally because they want to make sure that parents also be scared that they should make sure that their kids are not coming out for in case that something happened in riots or things like that or protests or whatever. Then a couple of years, and now I wanted actually to give some of my personal experience so you understand why Ellie does what she does. And by the way, she's a female character. A couple of years later, I was arrested again with my brother and some friends because we made a video that we actually imitate Iranian singers in Los Angeles, and that video circulated among several communities. And music was banned in Iran at the time. So you see, too many things are banned in Iran. It's like everything that is related to happiness and having fun is banned in Iran, and not under that regime. So, but the reason that they arrested us was not music. They took us, remember, I was 17 at that time. They took us to an intelligence prison,
Really?
blindfolded, yes, blindfolded, and interrogate us, 17 years old.
Wow.
I was still teenager, not even 18, and ask us, look, the stupid question. They ask us whether we were involved in some conspiracy with the singers, Iranian singers in Los Angeles. What? Like 17 years old, and we were just in that range of age. What does that even mean? In my cell, there
Mm.
was a man waiting for his execution verdict. Imagine a 17-year-old in a cell. I remember that guy was just all day from the morning to evening, he was just walking because he had stressed and they might execute him. And as a 17 years old, I should, imagine the trauma. I should witness that. My older brother was almost 19 years old. And they kept him in solitary confinement for 5 days. And after a few days, they realized that how absurd the accusation was, but they continued the interrogation just by asking humiliating questions about our private lives. They just changed the narrative, but they just still wanted to keep us. So it was really about intimidation
Mm.
and humiliation at the end. So and I have more experience like that. Later, when I was a university student, I went to a party outside the city, and
Mm.
the moral police and besieged, they can just force themselves into parties and just come in without any order, any court order, anything. They can just break into people's house. And I remember we were kids, the students, still young, 20 years old or whatever, 21 years old, and they
Mm.
were dancing and having fun, and suddenly the door opened and they come all in, like, and they're so scary. You might have seen in the videos that how scary it is. Security guards in Islamic Republic are. I managed actually to hide on a balcony, and eventually I jumped over a wall into a muddy field with another friend to escape. It was outside the city. It was like a village, big house, mansion house in a village. We were lucky that that wall that we jumped was not too high, and we just landed in mud, so we were safe. But one of my friend was not that lucky. He
Mm.
he jumped from the rooftop. He actually hid in the roof, and he jumped from the roof much higher to the streets, not to the mud, the pavement, and he broke his ankle. And
Oh,
because he couldn't go to hospital, he had to hide. He was in pain. He just knocked some of the villagers' door, and someone opened the door and take him in, and they couldn't take him even to hospital. Walked for Yeah,
it's weird. And
yeah, yeah. I heard that as well.
you hear it, right?
I was Yeah. I thought that maybe it's something the echo from the headset, but I don't know. It was weird.
I
Yeah, it
don't
was.
have
It
headset.
sounds like echo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Could you wait just a few minutes? Because I.
Sure.
Yeah, actually, this is not about echoing because I don't use other recording app, and it's
Okay.
usually with my phone, but it's weird. Do you mind if I start, or uh maybe if you don't mind, maybe can I arrange like another time and record it, or can I go like with this?
And I almost done with this last question, but if you want another 10, 15 minutes to wrap it up, we can
Okay.
have another 10, 15 minutes sometime next
Okay.
week and just wrap it up.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's weird, but I use my own like internet transfer system here so that I can avoid like this kind of noise, but
Right.
okay. But maybe we as I think that I don't want to intrude you, so maybe like we should continue. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so what I was saying that that experience, all those experience that I shared with you, like it shows that the system really was, trying always to intimidate us and to keep us obedient and silent. You know, these experiences just leave deep marks on a generation. They teach people that the safest way to live is just to stay quiet, avoid attention, and simply survive. That's what we learned.
Land.
Luckily, the new generation, they're very different. So when we talk about the silent majority in authoritarian system, people like Ellie are not simply passive or cowardly.
Mm,
Many of them learned from experience that resistance could destroy their lives or their families.
mm,
And then there's a character, Dick, who represents the deep
deep.
hypocrisy of the system.
Mm. Okay.
Publicly, actually, shall I carry on?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people like Dick, the
Mm,
mullah, they publicly preaches morality, purity, and harsh punishment for things like music, alcohol, or women not wearing hijab. But privately, he does the same things himself. So that's a actual hypocrisy in the system. So that contradiction, fear among ordinary people and hypocrisy among those in power, is something many people who live under the system immediately recognize.
yeah, actually, this, is very different, but North Korea, you know, uh, now like we have the same actually issue with the nuclear weapon with, Israel, but it's a
Correct.
little different. But the systematic torture, it's horrible, beyond words. You know,
Yes.
a lot of people who are born without even knowing the outside country, you know. And
Oh yeah,
it,
that country is so weird and
but when it comes to the resilience or you know, h- uh, how much people have ability to overthrow um, the this kind of dictatorship. Actually,
right.
it's very important that Iranian people overthrow this Islamic regime because um, well, China, is obviously controlling North Korea, and Russia is now giving technologies, to North Korea because
Right.
Korea sent, troops there. So,
Yeah.
so it's, if they ever, okay, if Russia ever gives precision um technology, then, Japan is going to face a serious problem. And
Yeah.
Iran does hold already. Actually, I have my previous um, um, guest was talking about this. He has met nuclear scientists from Iran. They were very serious
Right.
people. And I'm not necessarily saying that, he met people who were already assassinated by Israel. But, it was
Right.
before 1979. So, he was talking about this. But um but I mean the I believe, when I speak with the Iranian people, I believe that, they have the ability to overthrow. I think that, even, your generation is especially, um, probably suffering trauma. Like, I had a woman called Sarah Gorbani. She from my previous episode, but she was talking about the trauma, of that
Right.
the people have. And she explained, what it means to have trauma and, the term trauma that she uses, you know.
Right.
I really think, it's a traumatic situation, but it's important, that the Iranian people are showing resilience. Iranian people are showing that basically, even though they're not protesting right now, you know, or whatever, I believe that they have much better resilience than, people under communism.
Yeah, no, I know Iranian, especially this new generation, they are very brave and they don't just accept the authority of the regime. They challenge it, and I really yeah, I think that this is a generation can change things, and that they will, that the change is coming.
Yes, and at the same time, what I believe is that this Islamic regime is very, very hard to collapse at the same time. So
Oh,
I,
yes, because it's based on ideology. It's very difficult to collapse.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very different from communism, but I think it's a great opportunity right now, really. I
This
don't,
is one good moment for the change. I hope that this time they collapse. It's tough, but I keep my fingers crossed, and I hope that they collapse.
yes, I would like to mention this to you. There is Iranian Japan Association, the Friendship
Oh, right,
Association, which
right.
which which is about not about the Islamic regime, but the Shah regime. So they have this old type of
Oh, nice.
flag, but they were officially saying that they felt that they were betrayed by the media because they were not reporting about this 10,000 people who were killed in
Right.
just 3 days. The media started to say maybe the number was less, all these things. And they
Yeah.
have not reported about any single word about the executions, the public executions by hanging. This is so disgusting, so inhumane.
So, yeah.
So I and this theocracy, is not, something that is admirable, right?
Not at
So,
all. Yeah.
and I really think that these people, Iranian dissidents in Japan, really want freedom. They want to go back to Iran
Yeah.
as Iran being more secular country. So
Yes.
really pray for this moment to come. A lot of people seem to think that this is about the war, but if the Ayatollah regime doesn't collapse and the new democratic or more civilized, regime doesn't, stand up, you know, uh, this is not going to go well. So I really pray
No.
and hope that this is going to go well. And I really
Thank you.
hope,
Yeah. Same.
and
Yeah. I hope so. It's important. It's important for everyone, for the world, not only for Iran. And that, even though it's very difficult to collapse, this regime is very difficult to collapse. I hope that this, what the action that the U.S. and Israel it took. I hope that it come to the uh, you know, uh, the final result, I hope, is that the regime collapse, although it's not easy. But and people might need to do something about it as well, although it's very risky for people because these guys are outside in the street with guns, waiting for people to come out, and they are ready to kill as many as they can. They don't care. They just kill people easily.
I mean, when it comes to ruling, it's about, ruling people. And if they kill people, it doesn't mean, but this type of regime does never understand that. And
Yeah,
I just
no,
pray
I
for
don't.
it, the Iranian people really, to
Yeah,
have more
yeah.
calm.
Me too, and I really hope that this one works for them.
And also, lastly, I hope that those who really have PTSD, I really hope that people get into, the story of Iran from, a book like your book, so that, they will be able to understand the system better and also
Sure.
with less devastating, effect. So,
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
course, I would like to introduce your book on, of course, the introduction and the Amazon link, so that people will be able to search your book.
Sure. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I really, it's, as I said, it's an honor if I have people in Japan read my book. That would be amazing.
Of course. And it was, you know, I yeah, it was my pleasure, I could speak with you, on this
Thank you.
podcast.
Same here. You too.
My honor to invite you to.
Thank
And
you very much.
I hope that it's about time, so that it's almost like it's past 10 o'clock actually. So I hope you have probably nice weekend.
Thank you very much. You too. You too.
So
And I really appreciate the time you gave me. Thank you very much, Hannah.
thank you.